It was great talking to Michael. He is really enjoying his semi-retirement right, just going from tree event to tree event and living it up. I want to thank everybody that took the time to share these last few episodes. I can tell people have been sharing them, so whether you're sharing it on your social media, on your email, or just texting a friend, thank you so much, because it is making a difference. This podcast is a lot more fun for us when we get interactions from you guys, so feel free to reach out on our social media or reach out on our email. That's treethinkingpodcast@gmail.com, and suggest ideas for shows or ask us questions, or we love getting feedback from people, and it helps make the show better. So thank you guys so much. So without further ado, we're going to take care of some business, and then we'll get right to it.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not, nor is it intended to be, a substitute for professional arboriculture advice and should never be relied upon to perform or direct arboricultural work. The Tree Thinking Podcast makes no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information on this podcast and will not be liable for any damages arising from the use of any information in the practice of arboriculture or tree work. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guests, and their appearance on the podcast does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The podcast and its hosts are not to be held responsible for misuse, cited, and/or uncited copies of the content within this podcast by others. The Tree Thinking Podcast may not be reproduced or distributed without the express written consent of the Tree Thinking Podcast.
Michael started tree work back in the 60s, and that led him on a path he's still on today. He started his career dragging brush, worked his way up to being a climber, and enjoyed a full career. These days, he's still building the arborist community, whether it's through organizing groups on the internet, working on tree fund events, or hauling gear to help set up a big climb. On this episode of the Tree Thinking Podcast, our conversation goes from tree work in the 60s to talking to the future on building community, pioneering the future, and this semi-retired life of Michael Oxman. All right, we're back again. This week we're just kind of shooting from the cuff, but we got a friend of the show on. So let's introduce ourselves. My name's Andrew.
I'm Rob. Jamie.
Becca.
Cory.
And we've got Mike Oxman.
I'm Michael Oxman, rational tree surgeon.
Awesome. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about getting together for a little while. I talked to so many people, and an episode will come up, and then things will just get bumped back. So I've been looking forward to talking to you. Originally, we were going to talk about kind of Tree Fund and some of the projects you've done in the past around Tree Fund. Do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about those?
Well, the Tree Fund is a tree research scholarship fund for college students and their professors who are at the university level. So it stands for TREE Fund, is Tree Research Education Endowment Fund. And it's been around since about 2002. It started off before that with ISA and the Tree Care Industry Association, but then they combined in 2002. So now it's just one big happy family of the arborist's favorite charity.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
So you did I think one of the videos you sent me was a big zip line that you guys set up. What's the story behind that?
Well, we set up a zip line in Forest Grove, Oregon last probably September, and we had some rope that was donated by Feral Tree, and we wanted to check it out. It was the Petzl Access AXIS rope, 11 millimeter, kind of yellowish, greenish, and we set the 330-foot zip line up in a oak tree that was 6 feet in diameter, and then it ran probably from about 100 feet high down to about 60 feet high in the clump of other trees that we had to guy back to each other for safety.
Oh, cool. What was the distance between the trees?
330 feet.
Oh,
And so that ended up on a YouTube video called Send It Session.
Send It Session.
The
Cool.
person wrote zip line, they were regarded as sending it.
What'd you guys think of the Petzl access line?
Well, it doesn't stretch. It's lightweight, and in fact, we're going to be using it on another climb next week in the giant sequoias up around Yosemite.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Andrew was saying that's where are you on your way there right now?
Yeah, I'm on this. Like I'm old, so I'm like semi-retired.
Uh-huh.
And basically, I'm ducking work, and I'm on the road right now. I've traveled 375 miles from Seattle. Now I'm down in Gold Hill, Oregon.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be heading over to the coast to see the new suspension walkway at the Sequoia Zoo in Eureka, California. And then I'm going to head down the coast, go through the Avenue of the Giants, pick up some more rope. We had another spool of rope donated, and then take it over to Yosemite where we're going to be climbing.
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds like a great trip.
Yeah. It's funny that they call it a Sequoia Zoo. I kind of like that.
Well,
Yeah, because it's like you're going to check out a living thing, but I don't think they go out there like with raw chicken. Catch a sequoia feeding at noon.
That's just when the mist comes rolling in.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, you guys you're an old growth tree climber, Andrew, so you know that it's an extra special thing when you get up there. You know that when you bring people up there, they are so totally jazzed that you become infectiously excited too, and the feeling of exhilaration compounds off of these various people feeding, just like these comments that we just got right here.
Yeah. No, it anytime you can, it's one of the cool things about being a tree climber, bringing someone that hasn't climbed up into a big tree before into a tree, is you kind of experience that excitement of climbing for the first time again. I think everybody that's is here. We actually just did a big tree climb this last weekend, and I was able to bring my daughter up into the tree for the first time. She got up 200 feet up a 300-foot tree, and it was a very powerful experience for her. The emotions were across the board. I mean, she was like bawling, crying partway up, to just like ecstatic that she got up to, it just was across the board. It was pretty amazing to watch.
So you're just an enabler.
Yeah, exactly. I do my best. Only for the people I care about.
Yeah, I was descending down the tree and met up with you guys, and she had kind of her head buried in her arms, just dealing with all those emotions, but she still managed to throw up the surf's up kind of chakra bra side.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. It's she first started freaking out about heights probably 15 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh God, like I'm so scared. It's like, it's okay to be scared, honey. You're gonna be fine. Wait. And it turns out this was what drove her the rest of the climb. I was like, just wait till you get up in the canopy. It's like a whole nother world up there. And so, and this tree, it's, almost 200 feet to get to the canopy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of exposed trunk, and it's just a massive trunk. And she would go up about 10, 15 feet and stop and have another emotional breakdown. And like, I'm so scared. I don't want to go on any further. And I'd be like, it's okay, honey. You don't have to do this for me. Only climb for yourself. This is why you're here, is for you to, accomplish your goals. And she's like, I know, I want to get to that canopy. The canopy is going to be real nice. So I'm going to keep going, and go up another 10, 15 feet and then just repeat the process all over again.
Well, I've noticed for myself personally, and anyone that I've been around that's climbing for the first time in a big tree, like once you get over those first couple of whirls and you're in the tree, that you feel a lot safer. It's a lot more.
Yeah, it's less exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think she got just up into it, but I think she was just so emotionally drained from all the emotions going up that she was just ready to come down at that point. But Scott Altenhoff was there and Heidi was there, and so they just kind of hung out with us kind of in that first beginning part of the canopy. And I just having a couple, she knows them both, but not really well. But now she's best friends with them. She, like, even on the way home, she's like, do you have Scott and Heidi's number? And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I mean, I work with them. And she's like, okay, good. I just might want to send them some text later.
So are you going down
Scotty?
there to guide, or you're just going down there for a fun little getaway?
Well, I'm a porter. That's all I do is I just haul rope around. But,
okay.
you know, people wonder, you know, these people are all tree climbers.
Uh-huh.
And once you shoot that crossbow arrow and you're over that bottom branch at 150 feet or wherever it is, and you step off of that rope onto that bottom branch, it's pretty much like any other big tree.
Right.
The hard part is the clear trunk.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah, just on this last climb, I was feeling that where, I mean, the ascent, you're realizing how big the tree is. Then when I got out on the top and I'm hanging out, you know, you kind of forget how big it is. You're looking around and taking everything in. And then on the descent, you realize how big it is once again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of climbing up through space in that initial climb, because you're probably redirected over a branch. So you're not right up against the trunk, but you're kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, and it's just endless trunk. It seems like while you're sitting there.
When you are in the middle of nowhere and there is no branch between you and the ground, your inner ear that does the balancing for your body, it doesn't have any frame of reference. So you develop vertigo. And a lot of people, you know, get dizzy, or they will not be able to concentrate because their mind is sending them all these conflicting signals that, you know, they're in a dangerous spot. And it's just part of our self-preservation instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's interesting. That kind of probably lays into the whole, like, the first 50 feet or so of the trunk when there are no limbs beneath you. You're kind of like,
Yeah.
like the scariest part of a big climb, I think.
Well, and people, you know, I think a lot of tree climbers get that. People asking, like, aren't you afraid of heights? And it's always like, yeah. You know, I think it's pretty healthy to be afraid of heights, because if you fall, you know, that's one of that fear makes me double check my tie-in points, makes me make sure that I am on top of it. You know, it's more about overcoming that fear and using your logic and your, you know, your knowledge to accomplish the task. If you're just going on emotion, it's probably not the best thing to do.
I always tell people, no, I'm not really afraid of heights, but I'm terrified of falling. Absolutely terrified of falling.
How'd you get into?
Well, we're laughing.
Or go ahead.
We're laughing and we're talking about it calmly, and we're not hysterical. We're not like super afraid right this second. So the people that are listening to the Tree Thinking podcast are realizing that this is doable. They can do it. And it's really no different when you're up in a tree that, say, you're pruning the tree or you're doing a rec climb on a smaller tree. You've got 2 points of contact, you know, so you got your slip line and you got the climbing line. And so you have redundant safety protocols. And that is the thing that keeps us safe is when we stick to what we know works. And it doesn't matter what the situation is, because we're just reducing it to where we are. Everything that we can reach with our fingers, you can reach out there and put that extra rope around that branch, and then you are 100% safe. Plus, you have your buddy, and he's with you. You're using the buddy system, and he's checking your gear. He sees your descender, he sees your ascender setup, and he knows all of the gear because he's been relaying you up until that point, or you have been relaying her at that point. So it's a question of just repeating what you've done over and over and over, and that makes it entirely doable.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, if you're, if you haven't done a bunch of tree climbing or big tree climbing and you want to get into it, go to treeclimbingplanet.com and Tim Kovar will teach you everything you need to know and set you on adventure in life that will change your perspective. But I think the key, and it's kind of what you were saying there, is, make sure you're with somebody that knows what they're doing and can kind of help you through it.
Tim is fantastic. We went climbing down at the Treehouse Conference down in Oregon, and he had a person there that he was totally focused on to aid them and to provide them the backup that they needed. And then I had a person with me, and we were in two trees side by side. Tim with his progeny, and mine with my newbie. And the first thing that the climber that I took up there did was he pulled out his iPad and he started taking pictures, and then he called his mom.
Oh, that's funny.
That's hilarious.
It's a whole different world these days.
How'd you get into tree work?
Well, I used to babysit for when my sister couldn't babysit, and the neighbor that lived one block away was an arborist back in the 60s. And when I got out of high school in 1970, he needed somebody to load branches in his truck. And so some 17-year-old kid got the call, and I went at it. And it's been great fun ever since for the last 51 years.
Wow. So
That's amazing.
describe a little bit what the industry was like back when you first started.
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles was a cut-over cactus and scrub brush, sagebrush, and it had been orange orchards. Citrus industry is really big down there. But then around 1950 or so, that's when residences began. So by the time I started in 1970, I had all these trees that were planted in 1950 that were starting to need help. And because Los Angeles is so dry, all of these gardens were irrigated and the trees were just growing like mad. So we had a plethora of Siberian elm trees. And the Siberian elm trees, I don't know if there's some of our listeners that are in areas where this really hardy tree grows. They are bulletproof. You cannot kill a Siberian elm tree. So I was taught to top trees, and that's what I did for the first 9 years. And we worked the Hollywood Hills neighborhood, and worked for a lot of movie stars. Worked for Marlon Brando, spent a week at his house. Worked for Billy Crystal, Robin Williams, and a lot of celebrities. Wow. So we went where the money was. We were using a manila rope, which is made out of hemp fiber. And I only had 2 manila ropes break on me. One because I cut it with my chainsaw, and then the other one just because it wore out.
Oh, man.
But a lowering line was a 5/8 inch manila rope. And manila is about half the strength of our modern textiles. So the safety margin was pretty skimpy, and there were all kinds of issues with lowering lines breaking and stuff. But of course, it's when your personal climbing line breaks that you got a problem, because the ground rushes upwards at 66 feet per second.
Right.
Yeah, that's no good. No good at all. When you were starting out down there in Los Angeles, did you have a mentor or someone that kind of helped show you the ropes?
Yeah, the guy that I worked for was a wannabe actor, and his name was Big John, and he did extra gigs in the movie and TV commercial business. And he taught me how to climb, and it was all spur climbing and topping. So by the time I was ready to move on, I started looking around, and I went to my first tree trimmers jamboree and saw Bob Hunter in 1980, win the Western chapter, and then the following year he won the all-time or the worldwide championship for 2 years in 1981 and 1982. And so he was famous for this photograph of him in a giant sequoia tree that he had hauled his bicycle up. And he had the rope holding the bicycle, that he was on the bicycle, and he looked like he was riding the bike up the side of this giant sequoia.
That's awesome.
That's hilarious because Cory here has actually pulled bicycles out of the top of like a 80-foot giant sequoia.
Sounds familiar. Huh?
Something about bicycles and giant sequoias, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, if you want to see that picture, it's on my Facebook page. I've got this Facebook group called Old Growth Tree Climbing.
Okay.
And I have a whole bunch of these Facebook groups. One of them is called Arborist Training. If there's any classes, I post those. I have one called Treehouse. We have 3,500 members of that, people around the world that congregate together on Facebook and share their stories of how they build treehouses. So I really like specific discussions. Like if I were to talk to any of you people, I would zoom in on something that you know a lot about and ask you the hard questions that the answers aren't easily available. Like say, for example, you want to talk about zip lines. And I am studying zip lines for an upcoming article in Arb Climber magazine. And I'm going to be giving a presentation on zip lines at the Pacific Northwest Chapter ISA virtual conference this fall. So when I talk to people about zip lines, I want to know how to control the tension on two different ropes that are holding a trolley and doubling, of course, the strength of your zip line and focusing on safety. And if you have had experience in some of the topics that are interesting to me, you and I will have a discussion where I pick your brain and then I can learn. So right now, I want you guys to teach me something. If you could just tell me something that hardly anybody else knows, that is my version of what a successful conversation is like.
I like that. I like that perspective of trying to learn like that. And so now I'm curious about what you've learned about zip lines through your research.
Well, the issue with zip lines is that you have to start with a low weight and not overdo it and test it and make sure that it's going to run before you put your full weight on it. And it's different when you have a zip line that's designed to hold a branch that you're lowering to the ground versus a rec climb zip line where it's designed to hold a person and have that person ride in a fun little burst of speed to the ground. So really, it's your design that's the important thing. You have your tools, you got your rope, the rope's going to hold 5,400 pounds, and you may decide to run two ropes and have two pulleys hanging from those ropes, and then have your climber hooked on to that little trolley. But you have to actually be a physicist. You have to be a mechanical engineer. You have to know the limits of your equipment. And then you have to be able to read the trees. And the trees are the intangible. The tree is the thing that doesn't have a proof test mark on it. The tree wasn't tested to ANSI safety standards to be able to hold 5,400 pounds. So your ability to understand the morphology of the tree structure, the strength of the wood fiber, the type of wood that it is, you have to understand all of those things. And as a professional arborist, you can then put all that together and make sure that the zip line ride that you're conducting, either for a branch or for a recreational tree climber, is going to be a safe operation.
Yep. That makes me think about a zip line I've set up in my backyard. I don't have any big trees in my yard, but my kids absolutely love the idea of a zip line. And the biggest tree I have is a pine tree. It's really not that big, especially if you get up high enough in it so that you have a bit of an angle to it. And so one thing what I do for it is kind of along those lines of trying to create the safest system is I install a big block at the top, my biggest block at the top. And then I run the zip line through the pulley at the top of the tree and then go back at about a 45-degree angle and secure it to the ground over there. That way, when people are pulling on that rope while ziplining, instead of pulling the top of the tree over, it pushes the forces down into the trunk of the tree, trying to use the strongest part of that tree. Instead of pulling sideways on the tree, it's kind of pushing straight down on it.
Great.
So that's something that I've been kind of thinking about recently as I was setting a zip line up for my kids in our backyard.
Yeah, changing where that force vector goes.
Exactly.
The orientation to the tree is pretty crucial.
Yeah.
These are all
The
stuff.
force factor.
Yeah, it's all stuff that we do every day in like a rigging operation. You're thinking about everything you just talked about, all those vector forces, the wood species, the size, the load, everything, and after a few years of doing it, it just kind of, you got to double check yourself, but there's a natural feel. I'm like, this part of the tree is where I should hang the block for rigging this piece out.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're saying there's what you want to do, and then there's what the tree is going to let you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But that's how you approach any job. I mean, the ideal, situation a lot of times is like send it as big a possible piece as you can. In an ideal situation, you can just drop it. You don't have to spend the time setting up rigging, but then all of a sudden there's a little tree under it or there's a greenhouse under it. So these different factors become, the variables that you have to account for. And so you have to set up a rigging system because you can't just drop that trunk over in this direction. And, so it's kind of a similar problem solving concept. Only when you're ziplining people down a zip line, there's that much more, if you're ziplining a branch and it goes sideways and just gets crazy, that's a bummer. You don't want it, to hit something and, hurt a tree or a bush or something. But if that zip line is a person, then there's zero margin for error.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is there like a haulback line, like a belay attached to them, or is it just like the dip in the rope that kind of slows them down before they reach the other tree?
If it's too steep of an angle, then you have to actually lower the load down the zip line.
Yeah.
As opposed to letting it run free.
Okay. So you've done both. That's kind of what you're saying. Set them up.
Yeah, there was a fantastic zip line in a movie called Treepalooza. That's a YouTube movie. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with my YouTube channel, but I have about 650 videos on there. And Treepalooza was it was about another 350-foot zip line that took place in December in Florida last year in 2020. And I say 2020 because this podcast could be played in 10 years. This podcast could be played in 50 years.
Right.
And arborists in the future, they're going to be looking back. Well, what did they do around the year 2021? What were things like for arborists? And of course, not much is going to change. Maybe the ropes might be stronger. Maybe the saddles are more comfortable. Who knows? But
there used to be trees.
Yeah. I remember when there were trees. All the drones will be looking back at this podcast like, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah. I would like to take a moment to say hi to the future intelligence that is listening to this podcast.
You're right, though.
And apologize.
Well, the Treepalooza tree climbing competition that was held in Florida, it was filmed, and it also had a magazine article written about it as a companion. And I'm a multimedia person. I've always been an internet junkie that likes to communicate with strangers and pen pals, and I will cold call people. And So now I've got both the magazine article, the 10-page article, and a 13-minute video, both about the same thing, both two different means of communication, but both elaborating and building and expanding on the points that the companion piece elucidates. So that's what's going to happen in the future. Like my grandkids know how to use an iPad is better than I can use my phone because they've been doing it, since they were infants. And in the future, all of our contemporaries that we are setting up by training them, they will take our tree climbing techniques and build upon them. They'll refine them. They'll make them even better. And their job will be a lot easier because of what the people on this podcast created for them by, requiring that ANSI standards make the safety equipment have the capacity to hold 5,400 pounds. And the fact that you put two hands on the chainsaw when you use it, the fact that you have a second rope on your body when you're using a chainsaw, those are groundbreaking things that have only just happened in the last 20 years. And yet in 50 years, they will have been going on for 70. So we are the pioneers. We're creating these scenarios that other people can learn from. And if we can explain ourselves properly, then they can learn it a lot more easily than the way we learned it, which is by screwing up. And, everybody's had their mistakes, like when those manila ropes kept coming apart on me. I was one of the few people that survived a fall out of a tree. And there are so many people that do not have the ability to explain to us what they did wrong that caused them to die because they're dead. We'll never know.
Yeah. I think you had some great advice earlier when you were talking about sending a small piece first to test it out.
Test piece.
Yeah, a little test piece, and that's like a pretty golden nugget, and I think we can apply that to most things that we do here.
Small cuts, small problems.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Exactly.
I set up a traverse once, a Trillian traverse, several hundred feet long, fairly significant drop, so you got a pretty good zing on it, and we probably had maybe 10 or 15 people do the traverse that day. It was at Camp Lane on the way to the coast. They got some nice big trees there. We had a big event for my mom, and then a big guy went on the traverse, and he sank down lower and actually kind of clipped one of the limbs that the traverse was going above. So varying the amount of weight on a traverse does a lot of
a lot of fluctuations.
Yeah. He was a little surprised.
Dang.
The branch.
And so that makes me think, kind of from the idea of learning from the mistakes, trying to set up a zip line in a way that you can adjust the tension on it if you have varying weights going over it. So whether you have a rope winch, one of those crank rope winches, or a GRCS, or some way to maybe put a little more tension on if someone a little bigger is going to be on that line.
Yeah.
And you might want to take a little tension off if someone's smaller, who's, if you want that sag to slow you down.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of
interesting thought.
I got a question, Michael. What do you know the technical kind of difference for a zip line in comparison to a Trillian traverse?
I believe Tyrolean is kind of in the Italian Alps mountains. Doesn't that have to do with inertia, where you pull yourself sideways along a rock face, so you have a big angle in your anchor up ahead?
Oh wow!
And then when you release, the whole objective is for you to have momentum and blast yourself over to your next swing.
Yeah, so the Trillian traverse, maybe you don't go all the way to the destination just by rolling on the pulley. You got to pull yourself over or have enough inertia to swing you over.
We have this amazing toolkit that has been handed to us by the mountaineers. And I'm a firm believer in collaboration. And if we, like, there's a book called On Rope, and it was the Bible. Of course, now it's 20 years old, but maybe they'll come out with a new version. But we need to associate with our allied trades. We need to get humble. We need to let the ski patrol guide show us some stuff. We need to let paramedics show us some stuff. We need to let these search and rescue people demonstrate to us. Like for example, they have to have rope that'll hold a 2-person load. They're not allowed to use our ropes. So we have to knuckle under basically and become the student. And at Treapalooza, one way that we did that was with an aerial rescue simulation, where we hauled up an airplane fuselage and suspended it up in the branches of this huge oak tree. And we had 5 different crash test dummies that had notes pinned to them that said, "Oh, this is my injury. You have to do a medical examination of me." The one guy had scalp wound, and another guy was dead. Another guy had fractures in his leg. And so the aerial rescue competitors were looking at these simulated victims and trying to make appropriate decisions about examining their injuries and then treating their injuries. And then when they lowered them from the airplane fuselage, they were scored on points in 6-person teams. So the collaboration between the person up in the tree, in the fuselage with the ground people that were doing the lowering and the hoisting, they all had to synergize together and combine their skills and exploit the talents of their fellow teammates. And that is how we will develop these partnerships with these other first responders, only by doing things that they do and having them do stuff that we do. So we need to be welcoming. We need to be reaching out and collaborating better.
Probably at least 14 years ago or so, I called the fire department and said I wanted to talk to their high angle rescue, whoever does their high angle rescue work, and they turned me on to my buddy Dave McNeil, and he and I and Rich Hill and Ben Meyer and a couple other folks who work with the fire department developed an aerial rescue program and actually taught it to dozens of firefighters, and we collaborated with them and had a really successful class that we put on. It was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've done some of that work, and I can tell you that we learn a lot from each other, and it is great to bridge different kind of industries and occupations and learn from one another. It significantly helped a lot.
When we first met up with those firefighters and did that training back in the day, there was one of the things that stood out to me was that they were always tied in twice, like you were saying, a minimum of tied in twice, and that because for them they're doing different rescues. A lot of them have never been in a tree before, so they don't understand moving around a tree. They just understand safety. If you got one, you got none. If you've got 2, you got 1, is the saying they would say. And so they'd always be tied in twice. And then their method of rescue was just going up and putting a pulley in the tree and then just having a bunch of people lower the victim down.
Yeah.
So, they were like super into safety, But then it was just a bunch of
backed up on the lower down.
No, their idea was just we're going to lower it down because they're who knows what situation they're in. They're training for if someone's on a cliff or somewhere. They might not have something to attach that lowering device to, so they call it just Boy Scouting up and get all the guys together, and you get 10 guys on the rope. That it's not going to be that heavy. But it was really interesting seeing the difference in the way people did it in different industries. And, some of those guys, Dave and Rich and those guys, we train with, to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And they've learned a lot of the tree climbing techniques that we taught them, and they're still using those. Some of them have started tree companies.
Yeah, Arborees. Rich Hill's got his company, Arborees. He's doing a great job.
Yep. And then for me, what I took away was setting that line and just lowering them off of a completely different system. Whenever we'd train aerial rescue before, I'd go up and use that other person's system to get them down. But especially, that was a while ago. We weren't doing as many climbing systems as we do now. So now they could be on a number of different devices, or single or double rope, and so the idea of not having to understand how to work their system, but instead just putting them on a pulley and bringing them down has really kind of opened my eyes to, just keeping it simple.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry, have they damaged their rope or anything like that. You just get them down. So,
and that's what they did. And what's the guy's name in the plane?
Dudek.
Oh,
Jason Dudek. Yeah, we had a guest on that had just done an aerial rescue in a plane. Had you heard about that, Michael?
Yeah, I listened to his tree stuff interview. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah. He came on the podcast and explained the rescue, and it sounds like that's the technique that he used, or that they used, was basically setting an anchor above the plane and then picking the people off just as if they were lower down and lowering them to the ground.
Yeah, there's a branch of Westburg, and they have classes, and they put on this one class called Aerial Rescue Challenge that was just fantastic. And the more people that we could rub elbows with and expand our horizons, the more we're going to benefit ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that rescue challenge that you're talking about, I'm aware of that, and you're talking about the crossover, and they did that. They took a bunch of rope access techniques and blended that with arboriculture.
Interesting.
So they were doing rope access rescues. Arborists.
Yeah, I've got about 250 photos of the aerial rescue challenge on my Facebook page, and 7 hours of video.
Nice.
I recorded all of those lectures.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah, I missed that because I heard about it too late. I was talking to Dave Stice at a competition. He's like, "Are you going to be at the ARC?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And yeah, it was like the next week or something, so I missed it.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah, we all paused the world for a little bit.
What's COVID?
19.
The 19.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, back in 2019.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the, I don't know if it's a symptom of the internet age or if it's just kind of an outcropping of it, but there's just so much interchange between all these industries, and you can learn, like you can take little tidbits from somebody, because it's not just, you're just a firefighter, or you're just a rope access guy, or you're just an arborist. Like everybody can kind of meld everything that's going on into kind of the synthesis of proper techniques and learning things that are maybe better. Like you see that little, like, from an outsider's perspective, you wouldn't, or if you're like in the thick of it, you wouldn't really see that, putting 6 guys on a rope might not be the best idea. But an arborist is like, well, maybe that's not the best idea. Or, with rope access guys, it's, or a firefighter, he looks at your system and he's like, well, why are you just using his system? Set up a separate system. Maybe his system is compromised,
Yeah.
Having that outsider perspective is definitely pretty valuable.
Oh yeah.
Well, we all follow the same rules, the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple events coming up I hope to see you people at. The NAOM is coming up in Wichita, Kansas, July 23rd, I think it is, and that's the North American Open Masters tree climbing competition. And then there's going to be another one in October 2021 in the city of Rogue River, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just came
really?
from the NAOM in Virginia, which was really amazing. That was an old estate property that had 300-year-old trees. There was a beech tree, and we set a world record putting the most number of hammocks in one tree. We did 85 hammocks out there in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think a friend of mine is helping put on the NAOM in Rogue River, so I will definitely be at that one.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, that's going to take a big cadre of volunteers. So
Absolutely.
So spread the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys want, if someone listening wants to check it out and volunteer, what's the best way to get a hold of someone to volunteer?
Probably get a hold of Naom.
Yeah.
Naom in Facebook. NAOM.
Perfect. Check it out. Let's get some volunteers out there.
Yeah, and then also another thing in Virginia with Naom, we did a tree fund auction, and there was a crossbow that was donated to the tree fund, and we sold that to the highest bidder, and that money will go towards scholarships for arborists who are enrolled in college.
That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. That is really cool. I'm kind of wondering, you've obviously been around tree work for a while, and one of the things that we've actually been talking about doing an episode on it, and I'd be interested if you have any definitive moments in your career that you'd be willing to share. You know, I think everybody's had definitive moments that have helped them grow as an arborist or as a tree climber. Maybe it's, working with somebody, or maybe it's a close call, or who knows, it could be anything. But can you think of anything in your career that kind of, that you consider a definitive moment?
I always wanted to be fast, and I always felt discouraged because I could see the other climbers around me were more efficient than I was, that they had a better assessment of the tree than I did. And the thing that made me realize I had finally arrived was when I was taking down this tree that had a porch roof underneath it that was made out of this lattice work, really weak wood. And any branch would have smashed this roof. And it was a rich person's house. And it was the gal that owns Kemper Insurance. A huge corporation. And I realized that if I screwed up and dropped something through her little porch, that would be basically my moment of shame. And so I had to cut some pretty big chunks. And as I'm tipping them away from the house and getting them onto the rope, I realized that there isn't anybody better to do this job than me. Because I had worked for her several times. I knew her property. I knew where the pathways were alongside the porch. I knew where her little lamps were that lit those pathways leading up to the steps going to the porch. And so I was afraid. I was afraid of screwing up. And yet I finally realized that I had the background and the training and the familiarity with the site to put together with my understanding of working the tree, my saw, the ropes, and the other gear. So really putting it all together was that was a high point for me.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something important there. It's not just the skills that you bring to the table. It's also those relationships that you build. Like, does that person trust you? Like, that's a huge part of our industry, and that's a huge undervalued part, I think, of our industry that nobody really talks about as much.
Well, look at those firemen. They were all hoisting that guy out of that airplane and lowering him to the ground with Jason. Those firemen live together. They know how they fight. They know everything about each other. And so we have all this awareness. And if we can put it all together, that is the mark of a professional.
Yeah, about creating the team, because after all, tree work is totally it's a team sport that way. No matter how fast a climber you are, you're not going to be able to do the job if you don't have someone running the ropes and cleaning up and kind of filling all those roles. Michael, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I want to see where podcast goes. I really believe that this kind of sharing forum is really important because, like, say you're a climber that's been working for a year in the trees, and you have your 100 trees under your belt, but then you're starting to realize, wow, I could be doing things a lot different. I want to be fast. I want to know ahead of time what my next step's going to be. I want to know what's the most dangerous thing for me right now. I want to know what is the next tool I should be grabbing. I want to know which fork am I going to step into next. How can people really explain that to somebody else without that person just having to go make it up themselves? If anybody could tell me that, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I would like to attest to that because I feel like that's exactly where I'm at in my career. I'm like kind of just getting more and more comfortable every day with climbing and working in trees. And yeah, that's a great question. And I'm really lucky that I have mentors and patients and things like that. But I know that that's not the case for everyone. So, between all the resources that we have online, mentors that you have and friends that you have that you work with, and just, again, like you said, trusting the people that you're working with. I don't know what goes beyond that, but...
What we do at Sperry Tree Care is once a month we have something called Tree School. And that's where the company comes together and just spends a couple hours on educational subjects and teachings and questions and answers and sharing near misses and things we've learned. And we go through different phases like every kind of operation, it seems like. But, there's a lot of mornings where we'll circle up and just do near misses, from the day before, the week, and providing that space in a company for continuing education and sharing stories and giving advice. We do aerial rescue on a regular basis, and we do pruning, fruit tree pruning and climbing, and lots of different trainings just in house on a pretty regular basis, and that it's made it to where, what took, other than the experience of doing it, people are learning the skills like literally 10 times faster.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Because you're putting the ideas in their head before they have a chance to try it out for themselves, and then once they do,
they have resources.
Exactly.
They have people to talk to and ask, and we're creating an environment where, asking a question about how to do something is a good thing, not something that you should be looked down on because you don't know the answer to it.
Yeah.
So encouraging people to be asking questions and sharing near misses. No one's going to get in trouble if you said, "Oh my gosh, I just realized that the little loop in the bowline was the only thing holding that lower down." Mm-hmm. It's like, "Oh, that was a near miss. Let's talk about it." Instead of getting someone in trouble, we'll just all learn from it.
Well, and I think what you said there that was really key is creating the culture. If you're a business owner, or, you don't even have to be a business owner, really, anybody on a crew can help create a culture. And it's about, if someone has a near miss, instead of getting on their case and yelling at them, instead approaching it with a attitude of, okay, what did we do wrong there? Yeah. Not what did you do wrong there? What did we do wrong there? Because when something goes wrong, everybody on the crew, if you have a crew where even the guy on the bottom of the chain is allowed to speak up, then it's on everybody if something goes wrong, because we should all be watching each other. Nothing should be happening in a vacuum. And if something's going wrong, everybody should talk about it. And if that's not the culture, if you don't have the culture where everybody can speak up about safety, well, then that might be something that's, impeding the growth right there. So I think it's about having an open culture where you can have an open dialogue, whether it's good or bad. Also, if you see someone do something that's awesome, you shouldn't be afraid to go to them and be like, "Whoa, how did you do that? What did you do right there? How did you make that branch kind of move sideways, or, whatever happened?" So I think it's about having a culture of sharing and learning for better or worse.
And less critical, making it a safe space where they can say the things that they're not sure about and not have somebody ridicule them.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what we try and do is is not look down on people that make mistakes, but learn from them.
Because I think that's key. Everybody has made a mistake at some point. Everybody's done something and regretted it. Everybody's, had a moment where they, maybe tied a knot wrong, and then and then the lower down slipped or whatever it is.
Well, it goes for more than just tree work.
Oh yeah. Well, and when you do that, everybody knows that feeling of like feeling just so small, like, oh shit, that near miss was on me. And there's some people that hurt somebody or did something really bad where they dropped a branch and it landed on their buddy. And then I guarantee that's a feeling of shit that sticks with you for a long time.
Yeah, I'll never forget, Chris. Sorry for hitting you in the top with the top of that fir tree.
But I think too, if you're on a crew and you know the people that you work with pretty well, you can suss out like where they're at, and if they want to try something that they're not used to, that you know how to do, like just kind of being there to talk them through it in a way that isn't condescending, like is supportive and helpful.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
It makes them.
It's
like,
necessary.
Excited. Yeah.
Like that's your coworker. That's somebody that you're going to have to be dealing with in the future. So you're not just helping them, but you're building a relationship with somebody that could be helping you in the future.
Yeah.
If you are criticizing, just please do it in private. Like on the internet, there's a lot of loose talk thrown around in a critical way, and I had to send a message to somebody in a private message and just say, just because you don't like what they did does not mean that they're a horrible person. Their mother loves them.
Aww.
They are somebody's kid, and your job is to be happy. We are doing fantastic work here, but does it make us happy? If it doesn't, we should get out and go do something else. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen because tree work is the best kind of work. All of the people listening to the Tree Thinking podcast are probably really digging on where they're at right now because they have some amazing tools available to help them do these trees.
Yeah, I would second that. Yeah,
well said. Yeah. Very crucial.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that I've noticed now that we have Sena communication systems. I'm on a crew where it makes it a lot harder because in the moment when someone makes a mistake, before in the moment you could kind of pull them to the side and say something real quick, but now that there's Sena communication systems, I've almost had to adjust my strategy there because if someone makes this mistake, you can't just be like, hey dude, maybe next time you want to do this differently. Because people, if the whole crew is hearing you give the creative criticism to them, they might not think it's creative. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma I've run into.
But at the same time with the sun is you can see someone doing something that you would be like, that's kind of sketchy, and just like really discreetly be like, hey man, tip tie it instead.
Yeah. While the chipper's running instead, they're like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I never thought about that flip side of it. That's true. I do find myself quite, as Cory will say, giving people advice a lot more often. If I see something that even if it's not going to go sideways, even if I just have like, hey, this little trick might help you out a little bit.
Yeah.
Tie it here instead of there, and then you might get this result.
I
whatever.
Personally have found that like as a newcomer to the whole thing to be just like, it's awesome because
That's
you don't
cool.
have to yell at me about how to do it differently, but I'm like, oh yeah, no, duh.
Yeah. Even with good intentions, if you're shouting something, like, there's just a little stink on it,
It's got blue cheese smell.
Yeah.
It's like, it's good, but it's a little funky.
Just plug your nose.
It does help if you can read their mind, though.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of on a downward spiral. I am now the groundman for my son, who's 5. And we do have the ability to read what each other's thinking without actually having to say something. So as we work with people, we have really complex relationships, and if it's going to make us happy, that is going to work to our advantage.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's only a matter of time till Elon Musk develops the Neuralink, and we'll all just be on the exact same page on the tree crew. Senas will be old school. and we'll all be just in each other's heads. Oh God.
Do you think that your phone is going to be hooked up to your eyes, your eyeball?
It's only a matter of time.
I really hope not.
I could see, like, I've had conversations probably with you, Andrew, about this, some of our weird
Sounds like
stuff,
an
but I see like,
Oh yeah, we can go down the rabbit hole if you guys want to.
I see like augmented reality becoming more common, not like virtual reality where you're totally in this whole different world, but
universal
augmented,
language.
yeah, or augmented reality, like you have these glasses and your Google Maps is in front of you, like the arrow's on the road in front of you, pointing here. There's a Yelp review at that restaurant or whatever above your head. I could see that happen.
Filters on girls at the bar that are.
That's what the beer does.
Yeah.
Who needs it?
Well,
Take that, Google.
yeah. I mean, they have. I don't know much about them, but they had those Google goggles. Isn't that kind of what the idea behind those were?
The Google
Must
Glass.
not have taken
Yeah.
off or something.
I think it was, I don't know what it was, but I think it was just not, it wasn't quite integrated enough. And there was probably, I mean, Wi-Fi isn't ubiquitous enough, or like, exposure to a cell signal or whatever isn't ubiquitous enough. So I think it was maybe the little pockets of when you weren't actually connected that kind of broke the immersion.
Okay, so maybe with those things, they were just a little bit ahead of their time.
Yes.
Like the technology for the goggles were there, but the interconnectivity amongst the world wasn't there yet. And
It's like coming up with a hydrogen car at the turn of the century.
we
weren't
needed
ready.
5G. We didn't have 5G yet, so.
But yeah,
Well, the arborists in 20 years are going to be listening to this, and they're going to go, "Oh wow, these guys were so primitive. They still had phones."
Yeah.
They're still cutting trees with chainsaws. Where's the laser saw?
Well, they're talking about wiring it straight into your brain so that you're basically, and they've got those Neuralinks that they've wired into pig brains and whatnot. So
Monkeys are playing video games, the whole
Look,
9 yards.
I'm not impressed until I get a rigging rocket.
yeah, I hear you. I'm working on it.
For the toss boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, the disconnect between us and our phones is going to get shorter and shorter. You know.
But so Michael, are you familiar with Neuralink?
No.
Okay, it's a computer chip that they would put into your head, and it would connect into your brain, and it would interface with your body, and basically be like a really major assist to learning and to storing information. You could never forget anything if you didn't want to, or you could learn a new language by downloading it, or so on and so forth. If this technology existed, do you think that you would get it if it was affordable?
The Terminator arborist.
Exactly.
Well, I just got a new camera, guys.
Okay.
I got the Sony RX10. It's a CyberShot camera. It's a homeowner camera. It costs $1,700, and it has a 25 power lens on it. And it's basically a stalker camera. You can see stuff up in the tree. And in fact, if you look on, I did a magazine cover
You mean from
shot.
up in the tree?
Access and Rescue magazine had this picture that I took. I was standing about 300 feet away next to my tripod I had digital zoom. So all of a sudden that 25 power lens became a 50 power lens. And it looked like you were up in the tree with these guys that are helping this simulated rescue victim. And, the cameras are just totally amazing. Mm-hmm. And I have always felt that these toys are tools, and that they're fun to work, but they're also incredible boosts to productivity.
So is that a yes?
Yeah, I would be a guinea pig. In fact,
It's a soft yes.
if Elon Musk wanted to make space on his flight next month, I'll go with him.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
Right on.
Hey, you never know if they're gonna find, trees on Mars that would need to be pruned. Like, we'll be there.
Yeah, I watched the demonstration on Neuralink, and it's like the size of a quarter, I think. and he's got a robot that does the whole procedure.
Yep.
It would take like a half hour and be affordable. He'd be in and out.
Same cost as LASIK surgery.
You go down to the Mac store, you get your half-hour surgery.
Yeah, little to no recovery. You're just
We'll be over here like 60 years old with
Yeah.
a set of headset that's all busted. Like,
But-
I'm never getting that Neuralink.
one of the things it talked about is it could fix like neurological disorders. So like
Yeah.
say you're
Parkinson's,
confined
yeah.
to a wheelchair or something for that, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great.
And so that interviews with him that I've heard, he's talked about initially it's going to be for people that just are having issues
Yeah.
with their neurological issues or whatnot, and as they perfect it on people that don't have any other option than trying this experimental surgery, then they'll
Will
start
it connect to
figuring
the
out,
life force of the tree?
The life force.
oh man,
The life force of the tree. I mean, if I could have that plugged into my brain,
Oh, yeah.
I
wow.
could listen and
Yeah.
talk to the tree.
Yeah.
now we're
Could you
talking.
Neuralink a tree?
This makes me think of I just like saw this in passing, so I don't know a lot about it, but there's some kind of thing you can hook up to plants and trees, and it creates like a musical signal out of it, like their vibrations or frequencies
That's
or
like
whatever. It's like two different
Tomograph.
points. Yeah, I should look it up before
Yeah,
I start talking.
Yeah, I want to hear some of this music.
Yeah, activate my Neuralink right now.
I feel like NPR did something on this, and they actually played some of the music the plant was playing. I think.
Wow, what?
What?
Yeah, it was
NPR was featured a plant on their
on their
music.
I think so.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Well, and Dr. Alex Shigo said, touch trees.
Yeah.
And if we touch them in a kind of touch their nervous system, that's just a modern version. And he did invent the shigometer, which is kind of like a
Here we are
primitive version
on our
of,
access line,
you know,
ascending the tree.
one of the devices that uses sound waves.
I like tomograph.
So we have unlimited technology in our future. Technology is only like 50 years old or less. So in the future, when these tools become available to us, they still have to make us happy. That's the main thing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how everything with you comes back to making you happy.
It's very
Oh,
important.
I have a friend, Michael Garnier, who has the Treehouse Resort, and I was just sitting there when some tourists came through, and we're standing around talking, and they asked him why he decided to get into being an innkeeper at a treehouse bed and breakfast, and he said, "Well, I used to be, I was a medic in Vietnam, and when I came back to the States, I was a nurse, and I decided to switch careers. And now that I'm working with tree houses, I run into very few assholes."
Physically or
I don't know if you can say that on the internet, though.
No, yeah, you can. That doesn't apply for tree work. I run into plenty of assholes.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, you're not. Well,
Well, I hope I'm not getting in trouble, Andrew.
Oh no, not at all.
No.
Yeah, anything goes.
Well, we're just trying to be honest and give our true impression of what we do. And we have this wonderful ability to give the gift of a healthier tree to a tree owner. And they appreciate us. They love us because we're taking care of their tree for them. We're doing a better job of taking care of the tree than they could do themselves. So that is an extremely valuable public service. And all of the arborists around the world are to be congratulated on accomplishing the proficiency that they take care of these trees and they extend the lifespans of the trees that they work on. All of you people are out there making a better world. And we are public service providers. We are not actually tree doctors. We do not take care of trees. We take care of tree owners' problems.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to another reoccurring theme that that keeps coming up on these episodes is that as arborists, as tree people, it is our job to kind of speak for the trees sometimes, or not sometimes, a lot of the time, because the trees can't speak for themselves. And a lot of the people don't understand what a tree really needs. And so they want it topped because, that's just what they've heard over the years is you top the tree to eliminate the risk. But it's really our job as an arborist to explain why you don't top a tree or, the importance of having these trees around.
Our future depends on their survival.
Exactly. Exactly. And really, that's quite a bit of a responsibility. That's not just something. If you're an arborist, if you dedicate your life and your career to taking care of trees, then it is your responsibility to do that. And a big part of that is advocating for them.
Absolutely.
There was a heritage tree program around the time of the bicentennial of the U.S. Constitution. And in 1787, there were some trees that are around now that were recognized by the ISA and the NAA, National Arborist Association was the name of the Tree Care Industry Association before. So I was privileged to be part of a nationwide search for 200-year-old trees in 1987 to recognize our association with human society and the forests that we live in. And so I nominated the world's tallest ponderosa pine, which was in a Forest Service campground down in Grants Pass, Oregon. And, we recognized the fact that this tree had witnessed our lives all through its life. And then part of the requirement to qualify to be able to be one of the sponsors was I had to agree to adopt the tree. So in the end, there were 61 trees nationwide that made it onto this heritage tree registry, and so it was a great public service campaign by these tree care industry associations, and each tree got a bronze plaque. So time goes on, the dedication ceremony was over. The mayor who gave the speech, the TV cameras that were there, all of the hoopla around the heritage of this tree was over. And I decided to go visit my tree about 5 years ago. It's called the Big Pine, and it was in Big Pine Campground in the Siskiyou National Forest. So I drove up there. I was on my way back from the treehouse conference, and I saw that the bark beetles had gotten it. And there was a bunch of sawdust around the base of the tree, and all the sap leaked out. The tree was dead. All the needles were brown. Oh. So I called the ranger, and I said, hey, can I have that bronze plaque that's, on a pedestal next to the tree? And he said no, and I pissed him off. And I said, well, I donated that. He said, yes, but it's ours now, Mr. Oxman. And so that made me mad. And I got on my little keyboard and I started calling people. And I made friends with this environmental curator who worked for the Smithsonian. And he was able to get the plaque, and it's in the Smithsonian now.
Oh, wow.
And it's the only artifact that the ISA has in the Smithsonian.
Oh, that's
cool.
So this curator, you wouldn't believe what he said. He said that the volunteer work that we do to educate people about the value and importance of trees, and the fact that we're doing it for free just to boost our society, makes us environmental philanthropists. And he also said that because the work that the ISA does was included in the acquisition of the bronze plaque and all the documents, the files, I saved everything. I saved the letter from the governor. I saved the agenda. I saved the press release from the Heritage Tree dedication ceremony. And those are all in the Smithsonian exhibit files. And he told me that the job description of an arborist has been extended now from the time that the tree is planted until all the work that we do to take care of the tree until it dies. But now, because the Smithsonian will contain all of the mission of the ISA and the NAA, we have extended our job description into perpetuity.
arborists of the future.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some arborists in the future understanding that now, listening to this podcast through their Neuralink. And that is really cool, though.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was any ISA relic in the Smithsonian. That's fantastic.
No, that's next level, because that'll be around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
You heard it here on Thinking. Thinking.
Perfect.
Here we are.
I visited that tree probably 2 years ago. I mean, knowing it was dead, but we just went to go see it anyway. I think the campground was closed around it and everything.
And they're just letting it be.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing a plaque or not.
Well, that's pretty cool, because there's a debate to be had on whether there's more life in a dead tree or in a living tree.
Oh, it's a second life for sure.
Yeah, it's
not dead.
It's not dead.
It's not life with the way that we think of life.
Yeah.
No, but it is the continuation of that creature.
Absolutely.
The full circle is being completed there. So that's cool that they allow that to happen.
Yeah, trees aren't dead until never.
Exactly. Energy does not die.
Nope.
Oh,
Well, we've had an amazing responsibility handed to us,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you folks are in it with me.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It's amazing the things that we're learning on this. We started this podcast just as a way during the pandemic to kind of stay connected and to reach out to arborists and keep the community going around us as much as we could, because we were kind of missing all the competitions and conferences and hanging out with our friends. And it in a lot of ways it's going so far beyond that. Learning about the ISA being in the Smithsonian and all this stuff is just you never know what you're going to learn on one of these shows. It's great. I'm loving it.
Oh, yeah.
Right on. Well, I think we've got to the point in the show where, unless you have anything else you want to say, Michael, do you have any, before we get going, is there anything you want to plug? Is there, how can people find you if they have any questions? Is there anything you want to add before we get going?
Well, you can surf on over to treedoctor.com, which is spelled TREEDR.com. That's the website that's been up for 20 years. And send me an email. I'd love to see what you guys are up to. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as tree_DR. My license plate on my truck is TREEDR, and my phone number is 949-8733, which is don't all phone numbers end in 8733?
Yours does.
Right on. Well, let's get into the final thoughts. Rob, what do you got?
Oh, I'm really happy to get to know you a little bit, Michael. I think that you seem to have had a very rewarding life and career, and care about trees, and you seem like a wonderful person. And thanks for sharing everything.
Well, that guy that I sent that private message to, criticizing him for criticizing others, he might not think that I'm just a wonderful person.
We all have critics. Sounds like he doesn't think anyone's a wonderful person. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for everything you do. It seems like you're very prolific on the Facebook groups and like building communities. I commend you for that. That's really cool. It was really nice to talk to you and get to know you a little bit. And I look forward to probably seeing you in the future, maybe at Naom.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. It's been great talking to you. Some of the stuff that you said really resonated with me. Again, like small cuts, small problems, and having a community and people that are there teaching you and making it safer, and all those great questions you asked. So I guess my final thoughts are that you're awesome, and I appreciate you being here and talking to us.
Well, I'm so glad that most of your trees are ahead of you. Now just think how depressed you would be if you were me.
Oh my
I will never climb again.
Oh.
No.
Well,
You got good stories to share, though.
That's true. Yeah.
Have you used a Ronin Ascender?
Actually, my son Robert, he has a video on the Redwood Rec Climb and Camp Out Facebook page. You can check that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway from this is just, it's one of the core values of the Tree Thinking podcast is just community and building that community and how it's so intertwined in everything we do. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the community that surrounds us. And I think that is really one of the big benefits of this profession is just how deeply intertwined community is into everything.
Yeah.
Wow, are you just preaching to the choir?
Yeah.
Well, it's final thoughts. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to kind of go in a different direction. I'm going with the relationships that we build. No,
Weird.
yeah.
That's
I
how
mean,
that feels.
it's kind of going back to that was one of the reoccurring themes. It's the relationships that we build. We are lucky to do the job that we do and work with the people we work with. And the other thing that I really liked you talking about is how we're pioneering the future. It's easy to get caught up with we're just kind of doing our job, but what we're learning right now is the building blocks that the next lesson will be learned on. And so I kind of like that concept of that we're pioneering the future. And I guess if you're listening to this on your Neuralink, I'm just going to say stay safe and hi to the future. Real quick, right off, I just want to make one correction. At the beginning of the last episode, I said Michael had been doing tree work since the 60s. He's actually been doing tree work since the 70s. So sorry about that, Michael. That was just one dyslexic tree guy's mistake. With that, then let's shift over to this next episode. This next episode, we kind of go back more towards some of our older episodes. I'd like to thank Johnny for coming on and just talking trees with us for a while. We had a great conversation that went down the wildlife road and squirrels and all kinds of different stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. We always like your feedback because that helps us make a better podcast for everybody to listen to. So any thoughts that you got on your mind, please send them our way. We're at treethinkingpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us emails, or you can just reach out on the social medias and Facebook or Instagram. Just search Tree Thinking Podcast and we should come up. Make sure to share with a friend. Just click on the little share button on whatever app you're listening to. Text it to a buddy that you might think likes it. Maybe bring it up at work and see what your fellow tree people think of it. And without further ado, we're going to take care of some business and then we'll get right to it.
This podcast is for information